It started with a phone call I almost didn't answer. The number was unfamiliar, the kind that usually belongs to telemarketers or survey takers. But something in me said pick it up. I wish I hadn't. "Mr. Carter," the voice said, crisp and professional. "This is Daniel from Riverside Realty. I just wanted to confirm that the sale of your property went through this morning. Congratulations." For a second, I couldn't speak. My house hadn't been for sale. "I think you've got the wrong person," I said slowly. "I haven't sold anything." There was a short pause on the other end, then a careful tone. "It's 214 Maple Avenue, correct? The home under your name and Ms. Lauren Carter?" My daughter's name. My chest tightened. "What did you say?" "Yes, sir. Ms. Carter signed as the seller. Everything was processed through her business account. Closing completed at 9:45 this morning." The room spun. I gripped the counter to steady myself. "That's impossible," I said. "I never signed a thing." He hesitated, then added, "The paperwork showed dual ownership. She mentioned you were retired and no longer managing affairs." I hung up without another word. My hands were shaking as I looked around the living room. The house my wife and I had built board by board, the one filled with 40 years of laughter and loss. The sunlight came through the curtains, catching the old photo of my wife on the mantel. Her smile had always made this place feel alive. Now, it felt like the walls themselves were hollow. I called Lauren immediately. She answered on the second ring, her tone bright. "Hey, Dad, can I call you back? I'm about to meet an investor." "No," I said firmly. "You need to explain something. Did you sell this house?" She went quiet. Then came the sigh, long, impatient. "Yes, I did. But Dad, relax. It's fine. I needed capital for the new cafe. You said you didn't need the house anymore. You're staying in the cottage most of the time anyway." I felt my stomach drop. "Lauren, you didn't have the right. My name is still on the deed." "You're overreacting," she said sharply. "It's just paperwork. My lawyer said it was straightforward. You always said this house was for family, and I'm family. You didn't even read the deed, did you?" She didn't answer. I could hear voices around her, busy, confident, detached. "Dad, I'll fix whatever you're worried about later, okay? I have to go. Love you." The line clicked. I sat there, staring at the phone. "Love you." The words sounded hollow, a phrase thrown like loose change on a table. My wife's wedding ring still hung from the chain I kept in my pocket. She'd made me promise never to sell this home. "It's where our life happened," she'd said. I stood and walked through the hallway, every picture frame now feeling like evidence of something stolen. The faint scent of her lavender perfume still lingered in the closet. The thought that strangers would soon walk through this house, touching the walls, measuring rooms for furniture, it made me sick. I found the deed in my desk drawer, the one Lauren never bothered to check. My name, clear and printed, right beside hers. She hadn't even looked. She just assumed everything belonged to her now. I sat at the kitchen table, the afternoon light dimming into a quiet gray. My hands traced the paper edges, remembering every sacrifice that paid for this place. The double shifts, the years without vacations, the mortgage payments made by selling my old truck. That's when it hit me. She hadn't just sold a house. She'd sold the last piece of her mother's memory, the last promise I'd kept. So I'll ask you what I've been asking myself ever since. Have you ever trusted someone so completely, only to realize they never looked back at you the same way? I still remember the day we poured the foundation. It was summer, 1986. My wife, Ellen, stood out there in her worn sneakers, holding a mug of coffee while I argued with the contractor about the slope of the yard. She laughed and said, "Harold, you're not building a house, you're building a fortress." She was right in a way. That home was supposed to protect us, to hold everything we loved. I can still feel the rough edge of the cinder blocks as I laid them myself after the crew left for the day. We didn't have much money back then, but I wanted to say, I built this with my hands. Every paycheck from the factory went into that house. Each nail, each piece of lumber, each coat of paint had a story. Ellen worked nights at the diner just to help cover the mortgage. We'd come home smelling of grease and sawdust, too tired to talk, but happy, because we were building something that would outlast us. Lauren was only a baby when we moved in. The walls still smelled like fresh plaster. I remember setting her crib in the corner room, the one with the window that looked out onto the maple tree. She'd wake up laughing at the light filtering through the leaves. That sound, her laughter, it made every long shift worth it. As the years passed, I watched that house age with it. The floors creaked in familiar ways. The roof leaked every spring, but it was ours. We paid off the mortgage the year before Ellen got sick. I can still see her at the kitchen table, holding the final payment slip, tears in her eyes. "We did it," she whispered. I thought that meant safety, something solid for Lauren to inherit when we were gone. When Ellen passed, that house became a shrine of sorts. I kept her plants alive, fixed the porch she loved, and made sure the taxes were always paid on time. I wanted Lauren to know what it meant to keep a promise, to understand the weight of effort that built her comfort. For a while, I thought she did. She'd visit and say things like, "Dad, you really held this place together." Mom would be proud. Those words meant everything. But slowly, her tone changed. She started calling it old-fashioned, saying things like, "You could sell this and live easier." Then came phrases I didn't recognize: liquid assets, home equity, untapped potential. At first, I laughed it off. She had a good job, an ambitious streak, and I wanted her to dream big. But something in her voice started to sound less like ambition and more like impatience. When she talked about her new business idea, she looked at the house differently, like it wasn't a home, just a number waiting to be turned into cash. I tried to explain. "This isn't just property, Lauren. It's history. It's where you took your first steps, where your mother's ashes rest." She smiled, distracted, tapping away on her phone. "I know, Dad, but you can't live in the past forever." Those words cut deeper than she realized. I wasn't trying to live in the past. I was trying to protect what built our future. The idea that she could look at it and see only potential felt like losing her all over again. That was the first crack I noticed, not in the walls, but in us. Something had shifted, quiet but irreversible. I told myself she was just driven, that she didn't mean harm, but in my gut I knew. When someone starts talking about value without mentioning meaning, the foundation's already giving way. Now, sitting here, I can almost hear the echoes of those early years. The hammer strikes, Ellen's laughter, Lauren's tiny footsteps down the hall. I built that house so she'd always have something steady beneath her. Funny how she forgot that the foundation she's standing on was made by hands that never stopped loving her. It was a week after the phone call when the next blow came. I was drinking coffee when the mail arrived. A thick envelope from the bank, marked urgent. Inside was a notice confirming a completed wire transfer related to the property sale. My name sat on the signature line, crisp and identical to my handwriting, but it wasn't mine. I stared at it for minutes, trying to convince myself there had been some mistake. My signature, my full name, had been printed so neatly that it almost fooled me. The more I looked, the more the paper blurred. I'd signed hundreds of documents in my life, from paychecks to mortgages, and never once had I drawn the H in Harold quite that straight. Whoever did this had practiced. I called the bank immediately. The woman on the other end was polite, but hesitant. "Mr. Carter, the documents were processed with both parties' authorization. The notary confirmed all signatures." "I didn't sign a thing," I said. "Someone forged my name." She paused, her tone tightening. "Then you may need to file a fraud report, sir. But if it was signed under power of attorney—" "There is no power of attorney," I cut in. I'd never hand that over. After hanging up, I went through my desk drawers, searching for my original deed copy. It was still there, safe and untouched. But the date on the new paperwork showed something else entirely. The sale had been finalized through digital forms. No in-person verification, no phone call, just trust. Trust that my daughter wouldn't do what she did. I called her. It took 3 tries before she answered. "Dad, I'm in a meeting," she said quickly. "This can't wait. I got a notice from the bank. They have my signature on the sale documents." "Right," she said, distracted. "I told you it's all handled. Probably just a clerical thing. Don't worry about it." "Don't worry?" My voice shook. "Lauren, my name was forged. Do you understand what that means?" Her tone changed. "Dad, stop making this a big deal. My partner handled all that. He's been amazing with the paperwork. He said the title company approved everything." "Who is he?" "Tyler," she said, a hint of pride in her voice. "He's my business partner. You'd like him. He's sharp, confident. He's helped me structure the whole cafe deal." "Did he forge my name?" "Of course not. He's not like that. Honestly, you're blowing this out of proportion." I could hear voices around her again, laughter and conversation. She was somewhere busy, alive, while I sat surrounded by empty rooms and echoing memories. "Lauren," I said softly, "did you even read the documents?" A long silence followed. Then, a sigh. "Tyler said it was standard. Dad, you wouldn't understand. Everything's digital now. It's just clicks and approvals." Her words landed like stones. I realized then this wasn't a misunderstanding. It was carelessness wrapped in arrogance. She hadn't just made a mistake. She'd trusted someone else more than her own father. That evening, I looked up the name Tyler online. His photo came up easily. Smooth smile, tailored suit, the kind of confidence that hides sharp edges. Articles called him a visionary entrepreneur. I saw the same grin in one of Lauren's posts, him standing beside her under a banner that read, "Grand opening soon." I closed the laptop and sat in the dark. For years I'd believed betrayal came from strangers, from the world outside. But this one was signed in my own handwriting, printed through my own bloodline. I didn't need proof anymore. I could feel it in my chest, the slow, cold certainty that this wasn't an accident. It was deliberate. The envelope came on a gray morning, the kind that feels heavier than it should. It was hand-delivered, thick, official, with a return address I didn't recognize. I knew before opening it. Some part of me already knew. It was a notice to vacate. 30 days, it said. 30 days to leave the house I'd built, the one where my wife's voice still lingered in the walls. I read it 3 times before sitting down, the words blurring until they became shapes. The notice didn't call me an owner anymore. It called me occupant. I called Lauren right away. "I got a letter," I said. My voice sounded distant, even to me. "They're asking me to leave my own house?" She laughed lightly, as if I'd misread something. "Dad, you must have misunderstood. You signed those transfer papers months ago. Remember?" "No," I said. "I didn't sign anything. I told you that. My signature was forged. Lauren, they're saying I have to move out." She sighed, a long breath filled with annoyance rather than concern. "Dad, please, you're confused. Everything's already settled. You'll be more comfortable somewhere smaller. I've been looking into assisted living places near the lake." Her words hit harder than the letter. Assisted living. As if I'd already been filed away into some category she no longer had to worry about. "I'm not going anywhere," I said quietly. "This is still my home." "Dad," she said, her tone shifting to that careful, patronizing softness she'd started using lately. "Don't make this harder than it has to be. You don't want to embarrass yourself." That was the last thing she said before hanging up. In the days that followed, the story spread. My neighbors, kind people who'd known me for decades, stopped by to wish me luck on the move. One of them even brought a casserole. They said they heard I was downsizing. I smiled and thanked them, not having the strength to explain. Lauren had told them I'd sold willingly. Inside, boxes began to pile up, not from packing, but from avoidance. I didn't know what to take. Every item felt like it belonged to someone else, the life I used to have. I found an old photo of Ellen and me standing by the half-finished porch. Her hand was resting on my shoulder, paint smudged on her cheek. I slipped the photo into a small box labeled Keep. A week before the deadline, a man in a black car pulled into the driveway. He was polite, distant. "Mr. Carter?" he said, glancing at a clipboard. "Just here to confirm the move-out date." I looked past him, at the front door that still creaked on one hinge, the maple tree swaying above it. "Yes," I said quietly. "It'll be done." That night, I sat alone in the living room. The walls looked different in the half-empty light, pale outlines where pictures had hung, little nail holes marking every memory taken down. I thought about fighting it, hiring a lawyer, calling the news even. But something in me had shifted. I realized that sometimes, when someone takes from you, the only way to win is not to become like them. On the last morning, I loaded the car with a single box, the photo, a few letters, and the deed copy that still bore my true signature. As I closed the trunk, the wind caught the porch screen, making it clap softly against the frame. It sounded like the house itself saying goodbye. I didn't look back when I drove away. I couldn't. It happened 2 weeks after I left the house. I was living out of a small rental near the edge of town, still half unpacked, when a knock came at the door. A woman stood there, holding a folder and a badge that read, "Adult Protective Services." Her voice was calm, practiced. "Mr. Carter, my name's Dana Reeves. I'd like to talk with you about your property sale." For a moment, I thought it was another bureaucratic mistake. But she continued, "We received a referral from your bank. They noticed inconsistencies between your loan history and the recent sale documents." I stepped aside and let her in. The air in that little apartment felt smaller the second she entered. I poured her coffee, though my hands trembled slightly. "I've already tried explaining," I said. "No one listens." "Well," she said gently, opening her folder, "I'm here to listen." Dana spread out several photocopies on the table. The sale agreement, my so-called power of attorney form, and a notary stamp I'd never seen before. My name was everywhere, typed, signed, initialed, but it wasn't mine. Each page felt like a stranger wearing my handwriting. "Did you ever authorize your daughter or her partner to act on your behalf?" she asked. "No," I said. The word came out flat, final. "I never signed any of that. I told her not to sell the house." Dana nodded slowly, her pen moving quietly over her notepad. "The documents list your daughter as having full power of attorney, giving her legal control to sign on your behalf. But the form we obtained was notarized in a different county, on a day you were hospitalized for your heart checkup." I looked up sharply. "You checked that?" She gave a small, reassuring smile. "It's part of what we do. When something doesn't add up, we verify everything. I've seen plenty of these cases, Mr. Carter. You're not alone." For the first time in months, I felt something close to air filling my lungs. Someone finally believed me. She asked me to walk her through everything. When I learned about the sale, what my daughter had said, who her business partner was, I answered as best I could, though the words felt heavy. Every memory of my daughter now came with a question mark. Dana's tone stayed measured, never emotional, but there was warmth behind her professionalism. She explained that her agency would submit a fraud referral to the district attorney's office. "It may take time," she said, "but this kind of thing leaves a trail. If the power of attorney was falsified, we'll find proof." I nodded, watching her gather the papers. "Do you think there's any chance she didn't know what she was signing?" I asked quietly. Dana hesitated before answering. "Sometimes people look away from what they don't want to see, but someone went to a lot of effort to make this look real." When she left, I stood by the door for a long time, listening to the echo of her shoes fade down the hallway. Outside, the sun was setting, a faint orange glow across the rooftops. I felt small, tired, but lighter. For months, I'd been carrying the weight of disbelief, the kind that makes you doubt your own memory. That night, I sat at the table again and looked at the photocopies she'd left. For every forged signature, every false line, there was now a note in red ink, "Under investigation." For the first time since losing the house, I slept without waking in panic. Maybe justice wouldn't come quickly. Maybe it wouldn't fix everything. But at least the truth was finally being written somewhere official, in ink that wasn't mine. The courthouse smelled faintly of dust and disinfectant, the kind of place where lives are quietly dismantled and rearranged in legal language. I sat in the front row, my hands clasped together so tightly, the knuckles ached. Across the room, Lauren sat beside her lawyer, dressed neatly, her hair pulled back like it used to be when she was a child on her first day of school. Only this time, she wouldn't look at me. The clerk called her name, and everything began moving faster than I could process. Words like forgery, fraud, and elder exploitation filled the air, sterile but heavy. Dana, the investigator, sat a few rows behind me, a quiet presence. She'd warned me it wouldn't be easy hearing the details spoken aloud. She was right. When the prosecutor laid out the evidence, I felt my stomach twist. The forged power of attorney form appeared on the screen, enlarged and undeniable. My signature, copied, flattened, and stamped with a notary's seal. The judge leaned forward, his reading glasses low on his nose. "Mr. Carter," he said, "you'll testify to whether this is your handwriting?" I stood, feeling every year of my age in that walk to the witness stand. "It isn't mine," I said simply. "It looks like it, but it isn't. I've signed that name 1,000 times in my life, on paychecks, on birthday cards for my wife. I never made my H like that." The prosecutor nodded. "Can you describe your relationship with the defendant?" I swallowed hard. "She's my daughter. I raised her in that house. I thought I'd given her everything she needed." My voice cracked on the last word, and I took a slow breath before continuing. "When she sold it, she told me I was being difficult, but I didn't even know I'd signed the papers until the realtor called me." The defense lawyer stood. "Mr. Carter, isn't it possible you signed something you didn't fully understand?" "No," I said firmly. "I might be old, but I'm not careless." A quiet murmur moved through the courtroom. Then came the messages, printed, time-stamped, undeniable. Texts between Lauren and her partner, Tyler. "He'll never know. Just sign the form and send it back." Another read. "Once it's sold, he'll have no leverage." Lauren's face went pale as the messages were read aloud. Her lawyer whispered something, but she shook her head. Tears welled up, but she didn't look at me. She stared straight ahead, as if staring into the same emptiness she'd created. The prosecutor asked one final question. Mr. Carter, why are you here today? I hesitated before answering. Because the truth matters. Because no one, not even your own child, has the right to take what your life built. The judge nodded slightly, then turned his attention to Lauren. His voice was calm but sharp. Miss Carter, greed isn't always loud. Sometimes it hides behind justification, behind the word family. But what you did wasn't just a mistake. It was betrayal, written in ink. Lauren broke then, the quiet kind of crying that starts from somewhere deep. I couldn't look at her, not out of anger, but because I didn't know her anymore. The gavel struck once. The sound echoed longer than it should have. As I left the courtroom, reporters gathered by the door, their voices blurring together. Dana caught my arm gently and said, "You did well." I nodded, but there was no triumph in me. Just the dull ache of knowing justice had come, but at a cost no verdict could return. The courtroom was quieter than I remembered it. No reporters this time, no audience waiting for spectacle, just a few officials, the defense table, and me. The judge entered without fanfare, his robe hanging heavy as he took his seat. State versus Lauren Carter, he began, his voice steady, his tone almost tired. She stood when told, my daughter. Her wrists trembled slightly as she folded her hands in front of her. The judge read the charges once more. Property fraud, forgery, elder financial abuse, and then paused, his eyes scanning the papers before him. Before I deliver this sentence, he said, I want to acknowledge the weight of what has been done here. Not just the theft of property, but of trust. The words hung in the air like smoke. He continued, his voice quieter now. This court recognizes that greed can take many forms, but the most tragic is when it hides inside a family. When a child exploits the very person who once protected them, it isn't just a crime. It's a betrayal of the human bond itself. Lauren didn't move. Her lawyer whispered something to her, but she didn't respond. She stared straight ahead, her eyes fixed on the flag above the judge's bench. For a moment, I wondered if she heard anything at all. The judge's tone sharpened slightly. The evidence leaves no doubt. The forged power of attorney, the fraudulent sale, the money funneled into private accounts, all deliberate actions. Therefore, the court sentences you to 5 years in state custody, with restitution to be determined upon property reassessment. The gavel's strike was softer than I expected. No gasps, no murmurs, just silence, the kind that feels final. Lauren's head turned, then, slowly, as if pulled by something unseen. Our eyes met across the room. There was no apology, no plea for forgiveness, only emptiness. I couldn't tell if she hated me or herself, maybe both. The bailiff approached, and she took one small step back, instinctively defensive. Dad, she said quietly, almost under her breath, you didn't have to do this. I wanted to answer, but no words came. I'd replayed this moment in my mind so many times, imagining anger, maybe relief, but all I felt was stillness, like something deep inside had settled, though it left me hollow. The judge spoke once more, this time not to her, but to the room itself. This case reminds us that justice cannot restore what love has lost. It can only name the wrong and draw its boundary. When they led her away, the door closing behind her echoed louder than anything else. The sound didn't fade. It stayed, pressed into the walls, into me. Outside the courthouse, Dana waited on the steps. She gave a small nod, the kind meant for moments when victory and pain share the same space. You did what had to be done, she said. I know, I answered, though my voice was barely a whisper. It just doesn't feel like winning. She nodded again, quietly. We didn't speak after that. I walked down the courthouse steps alone, the winter wind sharp against my face. Somewhere in the distance, a bell rang from a nearby church, measured, deliberate, like the closing of a chapter I never wanted written. Justice had been served, they'd say. But what I felt was silence, the kind that follows when something sacred breaks and there's no sound left to name it. I still drive by the old house sometimes. The new owners planted roses along the fence, a different color than the ones my wife chose. The paint's been changed too, warmer, brighter. But I don't feel bitterness anymore when I see it. I feel distance, the kind that time grants when pain has done all it can. The deed no longer bears my name, but I've come to understand something deeper about what ownership really means. A name on paper can be erased, but a life spent caring for what you build, family, memories, decency, those things stay written somewhere no fraud can reach. I used to think losing the house meant losing my legacy. Now I see the truth. Legacy isn't held in walls. It's held in the way you live and in the way you refuse to let betrayal turn you bitter. When the judge's sentence became final, People asked if I felt justice. I said yes, but not the kind they meant. Justice isn't about punishment alone. It's about restoring balance inside yourself. The law gave me recognition, but peace had to be earned in silence. Some nights I sit by the window of my new place, smaller but calm, and I read the copy of that old deed. I keep it not as proof of loss, but as a reminder. At the bottom, under the forged signatures, there's still one section that's mine. The line, listing the original purchase date, the day my wife and I closed on that home together. I remember her smile when we turned the key for the first time. That moment is what I still own. Forgiveness hasn't come, and maybe it never will. But I've learned that letting go isn't the same as forgiving. Letting go means you stop giving the pain permission to lead your life. My daughter made her choices. The court spoke. The silence that followed became its own kind of verdict. What remains is quieter but stronger. My mornings are slow. I water the plants on the balcony, make coffee the way my wife liked it, and sometimes write her name on the mug just to see it there. It reminds me that some debts are paid not in money, but in memory. I think about the word debt often now. We spend our youth owing the people who raise us, and our later years hoping the next generation understands what it cost. But love was never meant to be a transaction. It's a trust, one we either honor or betray. When I look back, I see that the deed to that house was only ever paper. What mattered was the life inside it, the laughter that once filled it, the patience that kept it standing, the lessons learned after it was gone. I didn't lose everything. I just learned what could never be stolen. Was justice enough? Or is love a debt no paper can ever secure?